You have to have a certain amount of ego to play top lane. That's not to say that other lanes don't need an ego as well, and usually it doesn't start off as ego, it's usually amount of confidence. But it always gets warped into ego in League of Legends more than any place else because, man, we all play League of Legends, we fucking know. But that's because you need to have the ego, or the confidence, to
be their shield.
To be able to 1v9, to be able to gank a lane as mid or as jungle, or to be able to multitask for mid, or to be able to keep your team alive as a support, or to destroy the entire enemy team as the ADC carry. But some characters break free of that mold, and none encapsulates that better than Nasus. See, instead of bringing in some flashy moves, like a Qiyana, like a Yone, like a Yasuo, he doesn't have any flash compared to like any of these other characters. Which, I mean, I am comparing him to the flashiest characters in the game, but here, let's take some top laners for example. Riven, Darius, and Camille, and Renekton even, his own brother, is flashy. But Nasus, he's just a jackal, modeled after Anubis from Egyptian mythology. And his moves are so simple. He has his Q that's just an empowered auto. It barely even changes his auto attack animation. You won't even notice it's coming half the time. But you'll notice after he has 5,000 stacks and is about to kick your fucking ass. Oh god! I did lie to you a little bit because the next two abilities are pretty flashy compared to the other characters that I just showed off. His E is a damage over time, and then it reduces their armor by a certain amount, 25 at the beginning and 45 at the end. Percent, by the way, not just like a flat damage number. That would be kind of dumb. Nasus' ult is also pretty flashy, where it incorporates his E and his Q into making him a giant monster that does some AoE damage around him and also gets reduced cooldown on his Q, making him basically invincible because he has lifesteal passively. I mean, you can still kill him, but it's a lot harder. It's kind of like a Volibear or a Renekton or, you know, any of those ults that make him big and on steroids. Not unkillable, it's just really fucking hard, so if you're dueling him and he pops it early, then you can't kill him for the next bit because he's just not able to die. But simply put, his Q is an auto attack empowered, his W slows him down so he can chase or get away, his E is a damage over time to zone and, you know, help him kill people faster if he's trying to do that, and his ult is just steroids, which is a lot less flashy than most kits in the game now. Most of them have something very flashy about them, but Nasus has two, and I wouldn't even call his E very flashy after you know what it does, because it's pretty easy to avoid. The big thing is his ult, which makes him pretty flashy. But what did I mean about everyone dropping their arrogance when they play Nasus? Well, everyone doesn't drop their arrogance, but most people do, because to play Nasus, you have to humble yourself a lot. You spend 90% of your time as Nasus just farming, and it really fucks with you because you cannot kill anyone like early game like you would with a Darius, with a Camille, with a Riven. You cannot go all in early game. It does not allow you because of how Nasus' kit works. See, the thing I left out about Nasus' Q on purpose is that every time he kills something with his Q for the final hit, it will give it stacks, and the stacks infinitely, making him more and more and more powerful until the end of the game, which makes him obviously really fucking powerful. I mean, like, at some points in the game he can just go up and to try to counterbalance this, they make him very weak early game. So your gameplay for the next while is just, and maybe a little bit of, so yeah, you tend to have to let go of your arrogance and conceited nature as a League of Legends player if you're going to play Nasus. And let me tell you, it's still there. It's just not there for Nasus. And even then, it still bleeds through. The point is that you have to let a lot of that go. You can't be a Riven main and have all this arrogance and transfer it over to Nasus, because then you're just going to get smashed. I think a lot of people see Tyler 1, and they've seen how he plays Nasus, and it's just autistic, because he's trying to bring over the same ideas of other characters, how they can take hits, how they can deal the damage and take it back. He cannot trade early game. It just doesn't work for the poor bastard. It just destroys him, and it's never going to work out for him. The only time something of that variety will ever work is if he gets ganked early on and he gets enough time to get stacks, which is kind of your own fault a lot of the time if you get some stacks until late game. See, I've been trying to not be as negative as I once was, but the thing about Nasus here is that he's just cracked late game, because you can't, like, in the early game, you will always have someone in the lane, so there is always going to be something to keep him out of the game. That's fine. That whole bit, being pressured off of minions can really cuck him over. But the problem is, as soon as it becomes rotating phase, if you leave him alone, he will get big and win the game. So that means you are stuck in this lane against Nasus for the rest of the game. Because Lord knows he's not going to grow up if he has any brain cells whatsoever. So he is going to be in that lane for the entirety of the game. Which, if you've played against any split laner, or if you've played any split laner, you can tell that it can get really boring for whoever's on the opposite side of you. Because if you're in the mood and they're not to be farming the entire game, then it can really just make the game unfun for them. And Nasus exemplifies this a lot, because he just spends the entire game farming, and then will group up every once in a while to destroy the enemy team, and then just win the game. Or maybe his team will have thrown so bad that you lose something or other, you know? But usually, he's not the one feeding too bad unless he knows how to play Nasus. Because Nasus' whole job is to hide under his tower and hide in the side lanes and get big until he can just destroy the entire enemy team in 1v9. And I'll grant that he sometimes doesn't get there, because sometimes games just turn out that way, where people are just doing bad. Maybe it's their off day, I don't know, but sometimes it can just not turn out well for the Nasus. And I've had my fair share of games that I could not carry as Nasus. It can really destroy a man to not be able to carry as Nasus. But there are a select few characters that just ruin him. Like, he's not so overpowered that he has no counters whatsoever. It's just that he has oddly specific counters that will destroy his entire game. Or he just doesn't have any counters in the game and wins because he's playing Nasus. I mean, it can happen a lot with other characters, but Nasus is very polarizing with this because it all depends on his ability to auto-attack. If your team has the capacity to root and do a lot of damage and zone really well, he will never get to you, you're safe from Nasus. But if your team has none of that, or they have to be next to the Nasus to deal their damage, then he's just not going to die. Nasus's whole healing himself with Siphoning Strike is just so cracked late game. It gets so nutty that, like, here, I'll just show a clip of me going from low health to almost full again with just a little bit of farming, because it works on minions. So basically, you really have to drop your ego to just be able to play Nasus, because you spend 90% of your game just and it's just no place for Irelia main or Ribbon main or any of those characters. It's a place for someone who's just wanting to farm and wanting to annihilate the enemy team for his dedication to the farm, to the grind set. Grind set has given him the win. It's too powerful. He's going to win. No. No. He's won. No. The grind set is too fucking powerful. He's won. But at what cost? So in short, curb your fucking ego. Alright. Have a great day.